Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of The Fishing Teacher, and really appreciate you guys coming by the channel to check out today's episode. And guys, today we are going to be talking about what I call matching the hatch. You may or may not have heard of that term, but that is sort of a theory that if you can create the color of the bait fish or the prey that a fish is feeding on, like the color of the crawdads, the color of the shad, that it's going to give you a better chance of catching more fish. And I'm going to give you guys my opinion on this, because I've studied it for years and I've got some definite opinions, things that have created reproducible results for me on matching the hatch. So we're going to get into that in today's episode. Also, guys, real quick, just want a reminder, we got this new color of jig in my Blaukat Throwback jig. This is my brown, orange, and blue jig. This is one of my favorite fall time colors, guys. They just have these at the Cumberland Pro Lures website. They don't have this particular color in Tackle Warehouse yet, but I'll put that Cumberland Pro Lures link in the description if you guys would like to order this color right here. Put your green pumpkin trailer on it. It works really, really good. Also, you guys can get all my other jigs at the Tackle Warehouse link in the description of this video. All my Power Finesse jigs and my other throwback colors there. And also, guys, real quick, just a quick invitation. Anybody interested in booking an on-the-water lesson with me, booking my fall jerkbait trips right now, just go to my Facebook page, Randy Blaukat Professional Angler. Shoot me a private message for that and we'll get you all set up. So appreciate that. Okay, the thumbnail on this video, you can see it's a picture of a crawdad that I took down at Table Rock Lake. And one of the things, I'll sort of give you what has happened to me about how I've sort of busted this myth a little bit on matching the hatch is crawdads, they have different colors on them based upon the part of the country that you're in and the time of year. Sometimes they're black and green, sometimes they got some blue on them, sometimes they got some red on them. They change colors quite a bit, you know, just based upon seasonal factors. And I've always been of the thought that if you could match the color of the crawdads with your jig color, like by, you know, creating the skirt color and the trailer color, that you're going to catch more fish. I can tell you right now, from the crawdad imitations I've tried to reproduce and some of the perch colors and some of the shad colors, it doesn't work. It does not work. And let me give you the glaring example of this I'll talk about in today's video. I've mentioned this before in one of my other channels, but it's the best example I can give you. Because I was fishing at the US Open. I was practicing for the US Open down at Lake Mead about 8 or 9 years ago. And I was fishing a jerkbait in that tournament, and I started noticing, or in practice, and I started noticing a lot of the fish that I caught, they had fresh crawdads in their gullet, and the pinchers were sticking out. Every one of them was bright red pinchers. It's like that much of the pincher on them was like bright red fingernail polish. Not one or two of them, but every one of them. I caught like 5 or 6 bass that day, and they all were feeding on crawdads that had these red pinchers. So I'm like, God, this is a no-brainer. These fish are feeding on crawdads, even though I'm catching them on a jerkbait, and they're after these red crawdads. So I started making up some of my jigs, and I put bright red dye on the end of my crawdad trailers and tried to match the color of the crawdad that the fish had in their gullets. I couldn't get a bite on it. It's like literally I had 0 bites on that crawdad that I created almost identical to that. And I've also done this on like perch patterns, because a lot of times, you know, in the summertime of the year, fish feed on either black perch or bluegills or, you know, pumpkin seeds, and they all have different variations like yellow and orange and green on them. And I've tried to duplicate the same with like a chatterbait skirt and a spinnerbait skirt. It doesn't work. So from what I have seen in my own bass fishing, this whole thing about matching the hatch and trying to create, you know, as close as you can to the forage that the fish are feeding on is a myth. It is not, there's no bearing on it whatsoever as far as what the fish prefer. The fish will feed and prefer certain things based upon a ton of other variables besides the color of that lure. Now, in my opinion, the number one thing, more important than color in trying to match the hatch, is the lure profile and the lure size. So when you're thinking in terms of like trying to match the hatch with your shad or your perch or your crawdads, pay attention to the size of the crawdads or the perch or whatever that you think the fish are feeding on. If you're fishing down the bank and you notice some shad like up on the surface, and you see these shad are 1.5 inches long, or some of them are 3 inches long, try to duplicate your shad pattern lures to the size of the shad that you're seeing in the water. If you are up on the bank in the summertime of the year, and you know, a lot of times you can see those perch swimming real shallow on the bank, pay close attention to how big those perch are. Try to match that. And the same with the crawdads. If you start noticing some crawdads in the fish's, you know, gullet sticking out, or if you can like roll over some crawdads or try to find some crawdads underneath rocks, try to get a feel for the size of the crawdads and try to match your jig size appropriately to that particular crawdad size. Because I'll give you another example. Here on Table Rock Lake in Missouri, we have a species of crawdad known as the long pincher crawdad. They got really long pinchers on them, and these crawdads get really big here on Table Rock. You know, I've seen them 6 and 7 inches long. So a lot of times a large trailer works really good at Table Rock that has large pinchers on it, simply because of the profile of the bait. That's what the fish have on Table Rock Lake over other lakes. Some of them are smaller with that. So you know, this is one of those things that it was sort of like a hard reality for me to swallow, because I've always thought that if I could recreate the thing that the fish are feeding on and make it look more natural, that's going to be the thing that allows me to catch more fish, and it doesn't. And the very first time that I realized this was back in the early 1980s. Bagley came out with a series of lures called the small fry. And this was a revolutionary finish on a lure. It was some type of like overlay that they put on it, and the bait looked real. It's like they had crappie patterns and they had perch patterns, and they looked just like real, you know, fish. And before that, you had very rudimentary colors, like in the 70s and 80s. It's like this would be a crawdad pattern. They have very basic colors. And now Bagley had this small fry line that had it was like a foil finish they overlaid on it. And when I saw the ad, you know, I got sucked in. I said, I have got to have some of these. These fish are going to eat this thing up. So I went out and bought 2 or 3 of the small fries, you know, that looked just like the fish. I couldn't buy a fish on them. The fish, like I caught 0 fish on them. So I realized that there's other factors important, such as profile, how the lure wobbles, how it moves, how much water it displaces. That is what is attractive to fish a lot of times, is not necessarily, you know, how realistic that bait looks. Now, when you're talking in terms of color, I do think color matters, but I think color matters more in the specific color that you have based upon like the water clarity that you're fishing and the sunlight or the cloud condition, like how much light intensity you have in the water, the time of the day. Basically, your water visibility dictates the primary colors that are more attractive to the bass. It's not necessarily, you know, creating something that looks just like the bait fish in the lake, or creating something that you think looks good. It has to do with what the bass prefer on different light intensities and water visibility colors. And a lot of times that is just experimentation. So point of the video, guys, is don't get caught up on trying to match the hatch or try to duplicate the color of the primary, you know, forage that you see the fish feeding on, because I have not seen it work. So anyway, just a little something to file away in your bass fishing memory, and hope it helps you guys catch some more fish down the road there. Thank you very much for your support of the fishing teacher here, guys, and we really appreciate that, and talk later.